Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are really going back, way back, to a world shaped by ice, yes, but also, just relentless instability.
That's right. Our mission today is to unpack how the first anatomically modern humans in Europe, the Cro-Magnons, emerged. And crucially, how they dealt with the Ice Age.
Yeah, how did that incredibly harsh reality shape them and lead them to, well, eventually succeed the Neanderthals?
We've pulled together a lot of different threads for this archaeology, climate science, genetics, trying to map out that whole transition.
It really boils down to understanding what gave us, or rather them, the edge under that, ultimate environmental pressure cooker.
Exactly. And these people, the Cro-Magnons, they were the first truly modern Europeans.
The name itself, Cro-Magnon, that comes from the find back in 1868, right, in Les Izes, France.
That's the one. And when you look at the bones, you see us. Round heads, high foreheads. Anatomically, they're identical to modern humans.
The earliest Homo sapiens to really settle down and make Europe home.
But the Europe they walked into, it was brutal. And understanding that climate is key to understanding their success, we tend to think of the Ice Age, the Pleistocene, as just static cold.
Right, like one long deep freeze. But that's really not the picture, is it?
Not at all. It was incredibly volatile. Think less gentle cooling, more chaos, drastic, fast temperature swings.
Happening surprisingly quickly sometimes, not just over a huge timescale.
Exactly. It was an environment that just wouldn't tolerate inflexibility, adapt, or you're gone.
And this constant change, it wasn't just random noise, there was a rhythm to it.
There was, and the person who gave us the framework was a Serbian engineer, Milutin Milankovic. He figured out, just based on astronomical cycles, that ice ages followed patterns.
That's his big 100,000-year cycle for major ice ages, right?
Yes, and deep-sea cores proved him right. The climate swung, dramatically between cold and warm, maybe 9-10 times in the last 700,000 years.
Oh, yeah, 100,000 years feels slow, geologically speaking, but you mentioned faster changes.
Right, zoom in, and you see these things called Dansgaard-Oeschger oscillations, DO events.
Okay, what were those like?
Think rapid warming, then a slower cooling phase. And this happened maybe 25 times during the last big glaciation.
25 times, wow, and how often?
It seems like roughly every 4,470 years, give or take.
So within a few generations, the whole climate could shift dramatically.
Imagine trying to build a stable culture through that. Does that constant pressure crush you, or does it, force you to become incredibly adaptable?
It must have forced adaptation.
Yeah.
The conditions were just extreme. Like 20,000 years ago, the Gulf Stream even shifted.
It did. That warm current that makes Europe livable, it moved.
Yeah.
And the polar front, the edge of the sea ice, stretched way down south near Spain.
Leaving northern Europe basically a cold, dry wasteland, a steppe. Tough doesn't even begin to cover it.
And for a very long time, the masters of this tough world were the Neanderthals. Their story, scientifically, kicks off in 1856, the Neander Valley find in Germany.
Yeah, and they didn't exactly get a warm welcome from the scientific community at first.
No, not at all. Rudolf Virchow, a big name back then, he dismissed the bones, said it was like a diseased modern human, maybe someone with rickets, mentally impaired, anything but an ancient relative.
Anything to avoid the implications. It took Huxley, right? Thomas Henry Huxley in 1863.
Man's place in nature. That's what really started to place them correctly on the human family tree, linking them to more ancient forms.
And physically, what were they like? The classic image is very robust.
Incredibly robust. The fire hydrant comparison is actually pretty good.
Yeah.
Short, maybe 1.6 meters, but heavy, muscular, around 84 kilos.
Built for the cold.
Exactly. That stocky build, it minimizes surface area relative to volume. Perfect for holding onto heat in freezing conditions. A masterpiece of cold adaptation.
Okay, so if they were so perfectly adapted physically, why did they disappear? Why did Cro-Magnons replace them? Where was the sort of fatal flaw?
It seems the crucial difference wasn't physical, it was cognitive. Neanderthals were definitely intelligent. Their stone tools show real technical skill. But, and this is key, they seem to lack the ability to connect that technical skill with their, deep knowledge of the environment to invent truly complex things. Multi-part tools, symbolic objects.
You mean things requiring that next level of abstract thought and planning? Like combining different materials, seeing connections.
Precisely. Things like tailored clothing requiring needles, complex projectile weapons with different parts, maybe even art or jewelry that signifies something beyond the object itself.
So intelligent, yes, but not quite modern in their thinking, the way they processed information and innovated.
That seems to be the consensus emerging. Their toolkit, while effective for a long time, was relatively simple compared to what the Cro-Magnons brought with them.
Which brings us to the newcomers. Anatomically, modern humans arrive, and they bring new cultures. Archaeologists call them Upper Paleolithic cultures.
That's right. We see distinct cultural packages like the Aurignacian, the Grevetian, the Magellanian, and it's not just slightly different stone flakes, it's a whole technological leap.
What kinds of tools are we talking about?
Well, you get specialized blades, different kinds of scrapers, these tools called burins, but it's more than just the tools themselves, it's how they're using them and the strategies they imply.
Like with hunting.
Yeah. For example, the Grevetian period sees the first really clear evidence for things like nets and traps on a larger scale. That suggests a shift from just confrontational hunting of big game to more planned strategic harvesting of resources.
A different mindset. This technological package suggests they arrived with, well, fully modern brains already operating.
It really does. And the evidence for that modern symbolic mind is, well, it's stunning. If you want proof of a different kind of thinking, look no further than the Lion Man.
The Lowenmensch. Found in Germany, right? Hollensteinstadel Cave.
An incredible piece. It's about 34,000 years old, carved from mammoth ivory. And it's not just a human, not just a lion.
It's a hybrid. A figure with a lion's head on a human body.
Something that doesn't exist in the natural world, that tells you about imagination, about belief systems. It's bridging the physical world and something else, a spiritual or supernatural realm.
That signals complex beliefs, maybe about transformation, power, the relationship between humans and animals. That's a huge cognitive leap.
Absolutely. And it changes how you interact with the world, how you plan, how you build societies. But their culture wasn't just about the spiritual, it was intensely practical too. Think about the Venus figurines.
Like the Venus of Willendorf, or the ones from Dolny Vestanice. Very famous.
Very famous. And often noted for their exaggerated features, large breasts, wide hips, often no face depicted.
And the interpretation is often linked back to the harsh realities of the Ice Age. Survival.
Exactly. It likely reflects the absolute critical importance of body fat for survival back then. Fat wasn't just energy, it was life insurance.
Especially for women, for fertility and child rearing in that environment.
And just for basic survival, the calorie demands were insane. A Cro-Magnon hunter working hard in the cold, they could be burning 4, maybe 5,000 calories a day.
5,000 calories just to stay warm and hunt.
You couldn't get that from lean meat alone, especially during the long winters when animals were leaner. You needed fat.
So those late summer and autumn hunts, when animals were fattest, they weren't just a bonus, they were absolutely essential. You had to stockpile fat to survive the winter.
It was a caloric arms race. Survival depended on securing high-fat food sources.
And to win that race, you needed the right equipment, not just for hunting, but for processing everything efficiently.
Which brings us back to their toolkit. What was the game changer? The really crucial invention.
Well, a bigger spear, maybe.
Well, spears were important, but perhaps even more fundamental was the burin.
The burin, what's that?
It's basically a specialized chisel, an engraving tool. Think of it as the Cro-Magnon Swiss Army knife.
A chisel, that's the key tool, not a weapon.
It sounds humble, but it was revolutionary. The burin was essential for working tough materials like bone, antler, and ivory.
Okay, so what did they make with it?
All sorts of things. More effective spear points, barbed harpoons for fishing, and maybe most importantly for surviving the cold. Needles. Tiny-eyed needles made of bone.
Needles? For sewing.
Yes. Darning needles were the secret weapon against the cold. They allowed Cro-Magnons to create tailored clothing, fitted garments, layered, tightly sewn.
Not just draped hides like maybe the Neanderthals had, but actual clothes designed to trap heat and keep out the wind and wet.
That ability to create a personal microclimate using technology derived from the burin was a massive survival advantage. It's managing your environment through sophisticated craft.
That's the edge, adapting the culture and technology to the environment, not just the body.
Precisely.
So where do these technologically and cognitively advanced people come from? The consensus is clear, right? Africa.
Definitely African origins. The sources point to maybe an early, less successful migration out of Africa into the Near East, but the big one, the successful wave, seems to be around 50,000 years ago.
And that timing is interesting, isn't it? It comes after a massive global catastrophe.
Yeah, the Toba supereruption in Indonesia, around 73,500 years ago, it caused a volcanic winter, a huge population bottleneck for humans globally.
Almost wiped us out.
Very nearly. The few survivors, likely already possessing these modern cognitive tools, were then poised to expand rapidly once conditions improved a bit.
And when they expanded into Europe, they found it already occupied by Neanderthals.
Right. So, what was the interaction like? The evidence suggests contact was probably pretty sparse, maybe short lived in most places.
Why? Weren't they neighbors for thousands of years in some areas?
They might have been geographically close, but the cultural and likely cognitive gap seems to have been enormous. Think about communication.
Not just different languages, but maybe entirely different ways of seeing the world.
Exactly. Imagine trying to have a meaningful exchange when your fundamental understanding of reality, cause and effect, the spirit world, everything the Lion Man hints at is just completely alien to the other group.
Like trying to talk astrophysics with someone who only understands basic bartering. The concepts don't even connect.
It creates a huge barrier. Maybe some limited trade, sure, but deep cultural exchange. Probably very difficult, if not impossible. It wasn't necessarily open warfare, more like mutual incomprehension.
A clash of worldviews leading to one simply fading out as the other expanded.
That seems likely. And the legacy of those Cro-Magnon survivors, the ones who endured the Ice Age, it's written into our genes today.
Modern genetics confirms this, doesn't it? Looking at mitochondrial DNA.
Yeah, mtDNA, passed down the maternal line. Studies, like those pioneered by Brian Sykes and others, show something remarkable.
What's the key finding?
Around 85%, maybe even more, of modern European mtDNA lineages trace directly back to those original Cro-Magnon populations, people who settled Europe between, say, 50,000 and 23,000 years ago.
85%. So the later arrivals, like the farmers coming in during the Neolithic, their genetic impact on the maternal side was surprisingly small.
Relatively minimal, yes. The foundational layer, the bulk of the ancestry, comes from those Ice Age hunter-gatherers, the people who figured out how to survive the cold, the instability, the whole package. Their endurance paid off genetically.
So, summing it up, Cro-Magnons weren't just anatomically modern, they were behaviorally and cognitively modern too. They tackled the Ice Age with ingenuity.
Both technological, the burin, the needles, complex weapons, and symbolic. That inner world, represented by things like the Lion Man.
They had to adapt to this incredibly unstable climate, driven by those huge Milankovitch cycles.
And survival meant focusing on the essentials, securing high-fat foods to fuel those incredible calorie demands.
5,000 calories a day.
And mastering the cold with tailored clothing made possible by sophisticated tools.
It was this constant high-stakes existence. It demanded incredible physical resilience, but also, perhaps just as importantly, that mental and spiritual adaptability.
Yeah, the success of the hunt and the understanding of their place in the world, maybe through ritual or belief, they seem inseparable for survival back then.
Which really leaves us with a final thought, doesn't it? They effectively conquered the Ice Age with a needle and a symbol. As we sit here in our, relatively comfortable modern world, what aspects of that ancient resilience, that ability to endure and think abstractly under pressure, have we perhaps let atrophy in the long warmth?